got with me here Ms. Mtombeni. She's our media manager at the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. We are going to take you through a presentation. Hopefully it won't make you go to sleep. I know it has been a long day, so I'll try to truncate it and maybe make it more exciting and interesting to keep you youngsters awake. Miss, let us go. I'm here speaking for and on behalf of the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, and my name is Obet Chaurura Gutu. Ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabwe is holding a very important national event this year. In fact, I think we are, if my math is right, we are exactly 6 weeks away from the 23rd of August 2023, when the harmonized elections are going to be held. Exactly 42 days, which is 6 weeks to go. Which is exactly 42 days to go, that is 6 weeks. And ever since our independence in April 1980, I was there, most of you were not born, maybe all of you. I think I'm the oldest in this room. Since April 1980, Zimbabwe has held peaceful and democratic elections in fulfillment of our constitutional obligations. I think we're one of the very few countries on the African continent that have since independence conducted elections in terms of the supreme law of the land, faithfully and on time, since 1980. That is a fact. Zimbabwe is now a seasoned and a fully fledged constitutional democracy. Why we say it's a seasoned and fully fledged constitutional democracy is, I'm sure you all agree with me, that democracy is a process and not an event. And the democratization of former colonies of this world, not only on the African continent, but in other parts of the world, in South America, in Southeast Asia, is a process. Even America itself, the so-called doyen of multi-party democracy, it is still learning from its past mistakes. A country that has been independent for more than 200 years. We have only been independent for 43 years. But I can safely say that in those 43 years, Zimbabwe has punched way above its weight in as far as the democratization agenda is concerned. I'm not saying we are perfect, because we are not. We are anything but perfect. But show me one country under the sun, Sarkozy, that is perfect in terms of democracy. None. America is not perfect. Great Britain is not perfect. France, where Sarkozy, you got your nickname from Sarkozy. France is not perfect. Jones, France is not perfect. Canada is not perfect. So most of the time, I think we should also appreciate that as Zimbabweans, we have done very well. So it's a pity when we look down upon ourselves, we paint a picture that is so bad about our country. We are not proud of being Zimbabweans. I think this is an opportunity for us, especially for you young people, to tell the Zimbabwean to be proud of our country. It is very important for you just to be proud Zimbabwean and Zimbabwean, period. So, who is the NPRC? The NPRC is the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. It is one of the 5 independent commissions created or founded in terms of Chapter 12 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. We are one of 5 independent commissions. Yes, we are funded by Treasury, but we are an independent commission. By saying we are an independent commission, I'm not saying we are a rogue commission, because you cannot be created by the constitution of your own country and go ahead to undermine your own country's sovereignty and go ahead to be an enemy of the state. So I think it's very important that we understand what independence means. Being an independent commission means that we are a commission to save Zimbabwe. We are not a commission to decampaign Zimbabwe. And I'm using the word Zimbabwe advisedly, because Zimbabwe is a sovereign state. We are here today. Tomorrow we are all going to be gone. There's no one who is going to be alive in the next 100 years here, unless if science comes up with super medicine that will make my daughter there live for the next 150 years. So I assume that in the next 100 years, we are all of us not going to be there on this earth, but Zimbabwe will be there. So I think it's very important for us to understand that our status as an independent commission is derived from section 252 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I'm not going to bore you. This is not a lesson or a lecture on jurisprudence or the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I believe you are all well educated here. You have all acquainted yourselves with what the Constitution of Zimbabwe says and what the contents of section 252 are. But I think I'll just have to quickly run down our functions, because it is critical that we appreciate the role of the MDC in terms of the constitutional mandate that we are given. To develop programs to promote national unity, healing, and reconciliation. To develop procedures and institutions for the promotion of dialogue amongst the political parties and the groups. I'm happy that I've witnessed dialogue this morning amongst political contenders. And I hope that as time goes on, we'll be able to engage more on a battle of ideas, not on a battle of who has got more brawn than brain, who can beat each other better than the other. I think this is the Zimbabwe that we want to build. A Zimbabwe where it is a battleground of ideas and not a battleground of insults, of vulgarity, of all sorts of things that do not speak to developing us as a nation. To receive and consider complaints. That's our mandate. Ordinary people can come to us through the various avenues that we have, platforms that we have created to receive complaints. You might have a dispute with your next neighbor about maybe you're a farmer, you have a dispute about a land dispute, you have a dispute with a developer who has come to your area, you have a dispute, any dispute you can think of. We are mandated to receive complaints and to investigate it and to try to bring peace between the people who have been complained against and the people who have complained. What we call the complainant. And we don't use the word accused in peace building. We use the word adversely mentioned people. Why? Because in peace building, we want to inculcate a culture of tolerance. So our language is deliberately tailored to move away from a language that is combative, a language that is that speaks to intolerance, or a language that speaks to anger and or hatred. I think I need assistance again with the technology here. Thank you, Blondolozi. So we are also mandated to develop mechanisms for the early detection of potential conflicts and coming up with preventive measures. We have a system where we don't wait for conflicts to erupt before we act. That's why we talk about the concept of detecting potential conflicts. We actually have a commissioner who runs a specific thematic committee targeted at that, Commissioner Dr. Tirashirukuni. What we are doing is to say, we carry out studies, we carry out surveys, and then say there is something that might be erupting in Bikita, at Bikita Minerals. There is something that might be erupting in Shiadzwa. There might be something that might be erupting in Mfakos. Something that might be erupting in Cholocho. And then we put in adequate mechanisms to prevent the eruption of those conflicts. So we are not reactive. We are actually more proactive than reactive. So most of the time, We have our teams on the ground, technocrats, young technocrats of your age, who go there, carry out studies, talk to people, present reports, and then come up with various mechanisms and strategies to prevent the eruption of conflicts. So most of the time, conflicts that would have erupted don't erupt because of the intervention of the NPRC. And then we also conciliate and mediate disputes. Right now, I will just give you a quick example. There's a dispute that is raging on in Bohera, in Manicaland province. There is a wetland that is called Maenzo wetlands. I think it's one of the largest wetlands in Zimbabwe, covering about 168 hectares of wetlands. And there's been a simmering conflict there between two families regarding who should have access to those wetlands. And our teams are right there on the ground trying to bring the two families together, because they've been fighting over those wetlands even before I was born for more than 60 years, and they're still fighting. So the whole idea is the NPRC has got teams there who we work with traditional leaders, Chief Nyashanu, we work with the DDC in Bohera, we work with the Minister of State for Manicaland, Honorable, I'm forgetting her name now. We work with the Provincial Secretary for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, and we work with all other stakeholders to make sure that some of these disputes are resolved in a peaceful manner. So that's one of our functions. And we also are empowered to conduct public outreaches to inform the public about our work. I think recently you might have seen teams throughout the provinces, here in Harare, all the other provinces, on what we call the voter peace education campaigns, meeting stakeholders, political parties, ordinary people, traditional leaders. Only 2 weeks ago, I was in Mashonaland East with a very successful meeting with Chief Mutoko Shumba Nyamziwa and his headman and his crow heads. What were we talking about? Voter peace education. So a lot of work is being done. Maybe most of the stuff will not be reported about because we are all over. But like I was saying to John earlier this morning, most Zimbabweans say we don't know about the NPRC. I do not know where exactly we are not being known. Now that we are having this interface with the members of the fourth estate, maybe you might then help us tell the story of the NPRC as members of the fourth estate. What is our theme and thrust for this year? 2023 is an election year. I mean, that is, I would say, the main thrust of Zimbabwe this year. Now that we have election observers, we have already descended on our beautiful country. I think all the main media, both electronic and print, the central story or stories these days, they revolve around elections. And that is as it should be. And I think it will even go more intense as we go nearer the election date. Cognizant of the fact that 2023 is an election year, the overarching theme is on conflict prevention. That is our overarching theme as the NPRC. Conflict prevention. Prevent conflict. Why? Because when you prevent conflict, you encourage and or establish peace. Because there's no peace where there's conflict. That's why we have deliberately anchored our theme for 2023 on conflict prevention. Then we also have come up with what we call an elections conflict prevention strategy. It's a voluminous document, more than 100 pages. I don't think it will be necessary for me to use this forum to go through that. You can access that document on our various social media platforms. Whose broad focus is on the following: behavioral and attitudinal change. I'm happy that when I was seeing young people debating, it got a little bit acrimonious, but the good thing is for you just to be here, ZANU-PF, CCC, MDC, and the other parties, and exchange ideas, no matter how unpalatable it is. That is the Zimbabwe that we want to build. A Zimbabwe that is tolerant of diverse opinion and diverse views. Because the danger we have in this country, I think the problem we have had, who can insult the other better than a battle of ideologies and not a battle yokutukana. We also are focusing on stakeholder engagements and partnerships. This is a classic example of a stakeholder engagement that we are having. Engaging young people from various political parties, engaging the media, some of whom I've dealt with closely in my other life. So I think this is the Zimbabwe really that we should strive to build. A Zimbabwe that is tolerant. A Zimbabwe that is able to say, if these are Zimbabwean interests, we are together. I always want to look at the example of the Americans. Sometimes when you look at American foreign policy, ladies and gentlemen, you forget who is occupying White House, who is in the Oval Office. Is he or she blue or is he or she red? I'm talking obviously of the Republicans and the Democrats, who are the main political parties in America. American interests, whether you are blue or you are red, when it comes to American interests, they are colorblind. So it doesn't matter whether it was Barack Obama or Donald Trump. When it comes to protecting American interests, they all come together. So I'll be happy if we as Zimbabweans come to a situation where we say, as Zimbabwe, we are fighting and promoting the Zimbabwean agenda. If Zimbabwe is under attack, all of us, we are under attack. Whether we are ZANU-PF, CCC, or MDC, or LEAD, or whatever. If Zimbabwe is under attack, all of us, across the political divide, we are under attack. It is a Zimbabwe that I think we should strive to get at. So that if tourists are coming to Zimbabwe, we should all be proud that there was this captain of Aston Villa brought by Marvelous Nakamba to Victoria Falls. We should all of us be proud. Not to say, Nakamba change Harkuita. Because, you know, you don't want anything positive about your country being said. So we should distinguish between parties and political interests and then national interests. Molondoloza, I think I still have time, eh? Yeah. Just wind up. Yes. Okay. Then the fourth estate, what is the role of the fourth estate? The fourth estate is very critical because I've always said, I think there's no one as powerful as a journalist, especially during an election hearing season. Because you people, as the members of the fourth estate blessings, you can start a war and you can also stop a war, depending on how you use your powers as members of the fourth estate. One of our delegates today gave the example of what happened, the unfortunate incident or the unfortunate events that happened in Rwanda, April 1994, the Rwandan genocide, where no less than 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus died in a short 100 days. And what had happened? A radio station, it literally sparked that ethnic battle. And we all know. So we don't want Zimbabwe to go that route where we, as journalists, misuse our powers as members of the fourth estate and then use those powers to cause division, to cause intolerance, and even to promote hatred. We are all aware that in terms of the Electoral Act, there's that section quoted there. I'm not going to read it out. I'm sure you can all see that. Section 160 J, F, and G of the Electoral Act. It is instructive on the need for the media to conduct your professional mandate in a manner that does not promote violence, in a manner that does not promote hate or public contempt towards other groups. So once we as the media appreciate that we are there at the end of the day to be an instrument of peace building, it will be better for all of us. But if you are there, maybe you have openly taken sides as a journalist, and you then hide behind your profession as a journalist, you are a politician behind your pen, but you pretend to be a journalist. I've always said, try to make a distinction between being a journalist and being a politician. I know it might be difficult, but then if you are a journalist, report facts, not your personal opinion. And I think it's very easy to report facts and not your personal opinion. Because I think facts, as they say, facts are stubborn because they are there for everyone and for all of us to see. in view of the fact that elections are a conflict multiplier, you could almost see from the tone of the debate, you could see. My young brother from ZANU-PF and yourself, Chuma, I could see, okay, you are young, intelligent, educated young people, trying to propagate your political beliefs and ideologies, which is okay, which is fine. But then I would urge us to exercise more restraint. Maybe because I'm older now, I can appreciate that it's very important to exercise restraint. Because it's very easy for a fight to start right here. I've attended conferences where young people have fought physically. I'm not saying you should have fought, no. But I'm saying if these things are not handled properly, we'll end up with a situation where we have violence starting right here in downtown Harare in this upmarket hotel. And when it starts from here, then it spreads all over Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe will be on fire. And I'm happy that you all agree that we need peace. But now what I urge young people and also old people to do is not only to say what to do what they don't say, or to say what they don't do. Let us say what we do, and let us do what we say. Put alternatively, let us practice what we preach, and let us preach what we practice. And I think if we do that, Zimbabwe will be a far much better and a peaceful country for all of us. The fourth estate, your role continues. We thank you. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for supporting the objectives of the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. Let us maybe again also thank you on behalf of other independent commissions, because I know that you work with them throughout the activities, because if it was not because of the fourth estate, no one would be knowing about the existence of the NPRC. We would want you, particularly the fourth estate I'm addressing you now, to assist us in mapping conflict areas, the causes and the actors, so that we together can help make our country more peaceful. So I believe that our relationship should remain symbiotically connected in such a way that you learn from us and vice versa. And at the end of the day, we build a Zimbabwe that is not only stable socioeconomically, politically, but a Zimbabwe that is also peaceful. It is very important, because there's no development we can talk about. You can not even talk about sport. Our cricket team was doing very well. We all watched them there playing. Why? Because there was peace, a carnival atmosphere. People could come with their families and enjoy. So that is the Zimbabwe that we want. A peaceful Zimbabwe where all people are happy. We remain open to partner with the media, ladies and gentlemen, so that the service of peace and its dividends too can reach each and every corner of the country. Let peace visit each and every household in this mighty nation of Zimbabwe. We urge all responsible digital and social media usage by Zimbabweans, and we call upon our fellow Zimbabweans, particularly you, the youth, because they are the people who are more computer savvy than maybe people of my generation and older. Because when I went to university, there was no internet. We had no computers. We had no mobile phones. We had no laptops. So that's a different generation from your generation. So all I'm saying is, let us have a situation where we have a Zimbabwe that we are all of us proud upon. And let me again maybe emphasize this point. Let us desist from maybe reportage that paints Zimbabwe in a bad picture. I'm not saying lie about bad things, but I've always used the example of other countries. Have you ever heard or ever come across a South African trashing his or a country on social media? Social media, most of it. Have you ever come across a Zambian, a Malawian? I'm talking of these countries because we are in the same region, SADC, trashing their own country. What's wrong with us Zimbabweans? Something good happens. But why don't we for once just get proud of good things about our country? My brother, that's my question. to say this is not about ZANU-PF or about the MDC or CCC, this is about Zimbabwe. Because political parties come and go. But Zimbabwe will always be there, like I've always said. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased that you've given me this opportunity to interface with you on behalf of the Commission. Thank you, John. Thank you, Team 4H Zimbabwe. And I would urge you, all of us, young people, to continue to have this kind of interfaces, this kind of engagements, because they also help to depolarize Zimbabwe. And if Zimbabwe is depolarized at this level of young people, because young people, demographically, you are the bigger component of our population. If you are depolarized, it means everyone is depolarized. So ladies and gentlemen, let us come together, all of us, to build a Zimbabwe that is peaceful for all generations. That is our mission. That is our mantra. Building a peaceful Zimbabwe for all generations. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with you. Peace begins with all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Ndatenda twalumba.